So hello, it's me again, the Goldensilversurfer, and I have here with me Dominic Frisby, who is a writer for
I'm a writer for Money Week
magazine.
There we go. Goldensilversurfer, that's a good name.
Yeah, Dominic, it's really a pleasure for me to meet you. When I first got into Gold and Silver, I used to read a lot of your articles within Money Week, and I still do.
Okay,
and I received a lot of information that helped me get into the market.
Excellent. Now, I hope you've done a right out of it.
I have. I've done very good. So we're here today at the end of the
Gold and Silver Summit.
Gold and Silver Summit. Yeah. And you spoke today.
I did.
The subject you spoke on was
when to sell your gold. 6 targets to look for when to sell your gold. So I looked at the ratio of gold to stock market prices. I looked at this is a long-term 100, 200-year ratios. I looked at the ratio of gold to house prices. I looked at the ratio of gold to US debt. I looked at negative real rates, and I looked at the fiscal competence and sanity of our governments. And these are all indicators that I'm looking for. And when these ratios reach a certain point, then that's when I'll be looking to shift out of gold and into something else. What that something else is, I don't know yet. But at the moment, I'm a happy gold holder.
Very interesting. So Dominic, since May, or before May, was it February, earlier this year anyway, the gold and silver market took a right pullback.
Yeah.
I think it was May, wasn't it?
Well, the peak, the peak in gold was actually September, but the peak in gold stocks was really about February. But the overall stock market peaked in May, and so some gold stocks carried on going up until May. But basically, for the second half of this year, gold equities have been in a horrible bear market. I think that's what you're alluding to in your question.
That's right, yeah.
And if the next question you're asking me is when is it going to end, I don't know the answer to that, but I hope it's soon.
So what would be the signs for?
Well, I look at the moving averages of. I look at the 20-day, the 21-day, the 55-day, and the 144 and the 250-day moving averages, and when they cross up and they're aligned in a certain way, I usually use that as a buy signal or a sell signal. I'm sorry to say that overall equities are on a sell signal, gold's still on a buy signal mode, and gold equities, the explorers are in sell signal, the juniors, the late stage development and early producers are in so-so 50-50, teetering on the brink, but just on a buy signal, and the seniors are just still on a buy signal, despite the downturn that we've had this year. They're not yet on a confirmed sell signal.
Got it. So, the question, gold or silver, which one?
Well, I own more gold than I do silver. At one stage I owned more silver than I do gold, but I kind of flipped them earlier in the year. I still like gold. I think it's the money of last resort. I like silver, but if there's a metal that can wind you up and disappoint you and do everything else to you, it's silver. And I have other things to worry about, so I just stick with gold. At a certain stage, if the gold-silver ratio goes to 70 or 80 or something again, I'll flip out of gold and back into silver. But for the moment, I'm happy with, I think of my precious metal holdings, I'm something like 20 or 30% in silver, 70% in gold, something like that.
Okay. And do you think it's too late for somebody to get into the gold and silver market?
I don't think. It's certainly not too late to buy some of the equities. They're very cheap. That's not to say they won't get cheaper. But if you don't, silver's still reasonably cheap given everything else. But if you don't own any gold, I think it's really important that you own some. And then once you own it, hope it doesn't go up.
But somebody who's just coming into the market, when you say things like buy equities, buy bullion, it's such a minefield out there.
Yeah.
Where does somebody start?
Well, I would go to one of the websites through which you can buy and sell bullion, Gold Money, Bullion Vault, Gold Core, any of those guys, and just buy a small amount of bullion and read. Don't stop reading, because there's so much material on gold and silver out there, and that's where you'll learn your stuff. Do
you recommend any entry level reading material books?
Yeah, I do. That's thrown me a bit, that question. I wrote an essay called Why Gold is the Currency of the Free. You can read that on my website. That's a good kind of intro.
Okay,
I would recommend James Turk's book, The Collapse of the Dollar. There you go. That's
James Turk. He was here today as well.
Yeah.
The Collapse of the Dollar.
That's the best book on gold.
You just mentioned your website.
Yeah.
What is it?
DominicFrisby.net.
DominicFrisby.net. And you've also got a YouTube channel as well now.
I do Frizzers.
Yeah,
so
and you're doing blogs.
I do blogs, and you can see me wearing my other hat, my stand-up comedy voiceover hat, rather than my gold person hat.
Right, just an economic question.
Yeah.
Debt, is it good, bad, or evil?
Well, it depends how much of it you have, what you use it for. At the moment, we have too much debt and too much malinvestment, so I'm for less debt. I personally don't have any debt. I have had debt in the past. Yeah, if you take on a debt to build a legitimate quality business that will benefit mankind in some way or other, then I'm all for debt.
Right, okay. Also, the Money Week magazine, it talks a lot about the interest rates possibly rising, and you know, your colleagues in the Money Week magazine always talk about fixing your mortgage rate.
Yeah.
Do you think this is going to happen? Because we just had
I think the answer is our interest rate's going to go up. Eventually they have to, because they can't really get any lower. I think policymakers are going to do everything they can to keep interest rates low and suppress them with all sorts of financial engineering, and as a result I think they will probably succeed in keeping them low. But in the event of a currency crisis, which is not beyond the realms of possibility, then it's possible that interest rates will spike, and nothing that politicians can do will keep them down. But at the moment we are in a low interest rate environment.
So you're saying right now the markets will actually win and pan out at the end?
I'm saying the politicians will succeed in suppressing interest rates.
Suppressing it, right. Okay, so what are we in now? A deflationary, inflationary market? And how do you think gold and silver will play?
It depends how you define inflation and deflation, but we are going to see falling prices if you measure them in gold terms. In other words, the gold price is going to rise relative to everything else. The inflationary, deflationary debate is one of the most argued topics in finance, and there's good reason for that, because it dictates what your investment strategy is. But it's very confusing because there are so many mixed signals, and I try not to get too bogged down in it. And I just, prices are rising, but they're falling if you measure them in gold.
Okay, one last question. Europe, how do you think that's going to play out?
I don't know the answer to that. There's a political agenda of keeping Europe together, whatever the cost, and that is in stark contrast to the agenda of the people of Europe, who seem to want something rather different. It's not quite clear to me whether the people of Southern Europe want to be in Europe, but the people of Northern Europe, who are running financial budget surpluses for the most part, who are in effect bailing out the profligacies of Southern Europe, they do not seem to want to be in Europe, or certainly they don't want to bail out the profligate.
Yeah. Just another question. I know I said one more, I apologise. China, is it a bubble, or is it a stable, growing, thriving economy?
I think the China growth story is an extremely compelling one. Sooner or later, this weird demographic that they have as a result of their one-child policy is going to come home to roost in some way or other. I think the real estate there, if these reports I read and these pictures I see of whole cities that have been built that are sitting there vacant are true, then it is a colossal bubble that's waiting to pop. But nevertheless, the fact is there are still over 1 billion people, and 1 billion people who all want middle-class lifestyles will mean a lot of commodities and goods will get bought, and a lot of industry will happen. So if I were to compare it to there were a lot of bubbles in America as it rose to prominence in the late 18th century and the early 19th century, 1929 being the most famous of them. There was, I think, 1907, 1873. So if this bubble in China pops, it will, I'm sure, there will be all sorts of parallels between those various boom busts that happened as America rose to prominence. Oh,
so you think they can actually domesticate their economy?
Yeah, eventually.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Dominic, I want to thank you very much for your time. I know you're busy, you're running off.
It's all right.
Just before I end,
yeah,
just one more time, could you just repeat your website?
DominicFrisby.net.
And your blog?
It's just go to DominicFrisby.net and it all starts there.
And you've got all of your YouTube channel on there as well.
Yeah, it's all linked to there.
And also people can also catch up with you.
They can read my column in Money Week that usually comes out on Wednesday mornings at moneyweek.com.
Moneyweek.com. Dominic, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Goldensilversurfer.
Thank you.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon.